Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing IV Games' newest game, Mythic Mischief. Now, this is a game that is either soon to be or already on GameFound. There'll be a link in the description down below, and everything you see here is a prototype and therefore subject to change, rules, components, all of that, although prototype is a word I use loosely because this is the whole 9 yards. Everything here already looks deluxified, gorgeous miniatures, dual layer player boards, all the pretty stuff you'd kind of want in an end product, and this very much does feel like an end product, but that's neither here nor there, so let's go ahead and go into the review part of this video. So, to begin with, Mythic Mischief is going to be an abstract-ish game, and I say abstract-ish because it has some things that make it seem like an abstract while also not being abstract. The core of the game is you're going to have this tomekeeper over here. Now the game, I'm going to explain the basic 2-player mode first. This game does play 1 to 4 players, but let's explain the 2-player basic mode first, which is going to involve this tomekeeper over here, who you're trying to basically get to them to capture your opponent's people on the board. So you're going to have these people on the board. The tomekeeper is trying to move to various locations. So you see the tomekeeper trying to move to the 1, then the 2, then the 3, moving slowly around the board trying to get to their location. Along the way, you are trying to utilize your particular faction's abilities to both move your people around the board, to manipulate your opponent's people, to manipulate the walls, and then even to manipulate the tomekeeper, as well as 2 other abilities that are unique to your faction. So every faction effectively has 6 abilities, 2 of which will be exactly the same faction to faction, and the other 4 which will vary in some way, shape, or form. So for instance, every faction has a way to move your opponents, and every faction has a way to move walls, but how you move opponents and how you move walls is going to be the aspect that leads to the asymmetry of this experience. Now, this is where it starts to feel abstract and not abstract at the same time, because what you're doing is using your abilities and also upgrading and developing your abilities. There's a little bit of tableau building in this game because you're going to be trying to collect these various tomes around the board. And every time you collect a tome, you're going to take that tome and slot it into your board, which is going to give you more abilities because these dice act as counters to how many of each action you have. Sure, you can move opponents, but how many times can you do so every single turn? That's going to be where Mythic Mischief starts to become a little bit of an interesting puzzle as you choose how to develop your already asymmetrical factions as you try to figure out the best way to manipulate the board state, the best way to manipulate the tomekeeper. You see, at the end of the round, the tomekeeper is going to go ahead and move 4 towards the next objective. Now, Rebel will cost 2 movement, and whenever there's a choice of moving 2 same directional paths, the players themselves can choose. So, for instance, looking at the board right here, if the tomekeeper is trying to get to point number 1, we can either go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's one way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's not going to work. That's going to be a little too far. It looks like this pathway is the closest, which means there's no real choice. If the tomekeeper were moving right now, it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, and this mythic is caught, and blue's going to go ahead and gain 1 point. You see, the game ends either when a faction has gotten 10 points, or alternatively after you've gone through 2 phases of the game, with the tomekeeper going through 1, 2, 3, then flipping the after lunch card, and again going 1, 2, 3. So again, quick high-level summary of everything I just said. The main point of the game is to get the tomekeeper to capture your opponent's mythics and to use your various abilities that are going to be slowly upgraded in terms of how many of each ability you have, to use those abilities to manipulate the board state, to move walls from location to location. You see, for instance, over here, this witch over here, can use their wall moving ability, rotating the die down to 0, to move a wall from any witch to another witch, and therefore, now the tomekeeper is going to be going this way instead. Or perhaps this way, because either one of those is the same pathway. So you're trying to manipulate and mess with the board, mess with your opponents in this game as you try to eventually get to 10 points, or to just have more points than your opponent when the game does end. That is going to be Mythic Mischief, and with that, let's get into the review part of this video. And I'm going to be a little less formulaic than I usually am, or at least I'm going to try to be. I always have this what I liked, didn't like, can see others not liking, and I'm still going to try to hit all those notes. But man, I really like this game. Mythic Mischief, for context, is going to be, when IV Games first spoke to me about the game, and there's a whole bunch of other content you can find, by the way. We went down to IV Games, they brought a bunch of content creators down. There's going to be a gameplay going on their channel, I believe, of me playing with Jeremy Howard. There's also a Blitz mode we had with, me, Crackle, IV Games, Jeremy Howard all playing. This is a game that I've had the opportunity to try both down at IV Games Studios, as well as well, when I got the prototype, playing it with my nephew, with my friends, with my wife, having a blast enjoying and experiencing this game. But when I first heard about this game from Ivy Studios, from Ivy Games, when they first reached out to me and they told me about the premise, I was already intrigued because I tend to like abstracts to a certain degree. Oh, that's not true. Not to a certain degree. I tend to like abstracts, period. Although the best abstracts are the ones that tend to stay in my collection, or at least the best for me. I love games like Tak, like Santorini, like the GIF series, Tsar, Yinch, other games in the series. I tend to love and enjoy various abstracts, although some of them do get less interesting over time for me, depending on what they're offering, depending on what they're bringing to the table. Mythic Mischief combines some of the pure elegance of an abstract game as you try to figure out how to manipulate the board, how to utilize your actions, all in this puzzle of basically making sure you get caught less often than your opponents. And you will get caught. Make no mistake about that. There's almost no way to ever stay perfectly safe forever. Maybe if you're really, really good, but I'm not that good, I can tell you that for sure. But it's not a question about being caught, it's a question about can you eke out that turn, where through tactical play, through the manipulation of a wall here and moving the rubble there, some rubble's going to be one of those things you can't actually move that often, but certain abilities will let you do so, or just the way you utilize or upgrade your character, the way you use your before lunch and after lunch abilities. There's a lot of things on the table in front of you to mess with the game and to think through how you can get that one turn where you don't get caught that turn, or where you catch your opponents twice that turn. It's all about eking out those little advantages over your opponent as you look at the board, as you figure out what's the puzzle here. What am I solving? How am I making the tomekeeper have a shorter route, a longer route, capture my opponents, move a wall here, move a wall there, get the tome so I can upgrade my tableau. All those things are what goes into the core game of Mythic Mischief in the abstract puzzle it's offering. And at the same time, it has the asymmetry, the powers and abilities of a variety of different factions. We have the witches, we have the vampires, we have the trolls, we have the monsters, we have the zombies, we have the wizards. And then on Kickstarter, on GameFound, not Kickstarter, on GameFound, there's also going to be the ghost faction, which I believe on GameFound, you can even get them, is it glow in the dark? There's translucent. There's some extra deluxe version of the ghost faction that is exclusive to GameFound. So whole bunch of factions in the game to keep the puzzle interesting. And that's all the 2-player mode of the game. Now, the 1-player mode, I haven't played that at all. I can't comment on that. The 3-player mode, I haven't played myself. I know others who have played it and thought it was well done. Haven't played that myself. But then there's going to be the 4-player mode, which you can play either as a standard 4-player mode or, and this is the other game I really love, you can also play it as the Blitz mode. The Blitz mode is going to be a timed round where you have 2 players. You're going to require 2 boards. You'll team up the 2 boards. You'll have 2 players, each with their factions, operating as teams. So you might have the witches and the wizards and the zombies and the vampires teaming up against each other. And then from there, you have a timer on your turn. That's the first catch. You have a timer. You have an X number of actions or amount of time, 2 minutes to take your turn in the game. But then it's also sudden death. It's going to be a game mode where as your characters die, they are gone for good, which adds a degree of tenseness to the Blitz mode. The Blitz mode is an amazingly fun experience, a little bit less of the tactical nature of thinking through every single thing in the game, but that could also be a good thing, because this is where we get to the part of some of the aspects of why Mythic Mischief might be less right for yourself, might not be the perfect game. And the biggest problem I have with Mythic Mischief is going to be the analysis paralysis in the game. This is a game that is absolutely prone to AP, to analysis paralysis, the process of sitting there thinking through the perfect move for way, way longer than you should, because that is a factor here. This is, like I said already, an abstract game with powers and abilities and thinking through not just what you want to do on your turn, not just the infinite ways you can manipulate your turn, but also thinking through, okay, well, when I'm done, when I say end turn and the tomekeeper moves and it captures my opponent or gets whatever, what is it that they can do back to me? So you can try to spend a lot of time trying to think through that perfect turn, and that can lead to slow movements in this game, and that won't be a problem in the Blitz mode, although Blitz mode isn't necessarily the only way you're going to want to play the game. So factor in that this is a game where you might have to be comfortable with a degree of slowdown as players try to take in all that information on the table and come up with the perfect move. And what's more frustrating is when they do take all the time and they actually do come up with the perfect move. That's even more frustrating because feels like they were rewarded for taking so long. But that's going to be my biggest problem with Mythic Mischief. And along the same lines, it does sometimes feel like this is a game where I kind of want to pull out when I have like a 25-minute, half an hour slot to play a nice, fun, light abstract, except it's not actually a nice, fun, light abstract. It's fun, but it's not light, and it's not going to fit into that 25-minute slot, at least not until you get much, much better at it. This is a game which is going to come in at 45 minutes plus. I mean, it says it on the box. It's not like they're hiding it from you, but at the same time, this is not a game that fits into the same time slot as Tak or Santorini, which are my two favorite abstracts in my collection. This is a longer game and a longer experience. Well worth it, for sure, but definitely more of a, well, longer experience. I don't have another way to say it over there. As far as other things to be mindful of, is the player count is going to be one thing. I mean, like I said already, this is going to be a game that is a 1 to 4 player game. Instinctively, you're going to think of it most primarily as a 2-player experience. Although, like I said already, the 3-player mode supposedly is good, and the 4-player mode, I can tell you I enjoyed it a lot, so it is that. But it's something you might think of more as a 2-player game. And then the theme does come a little bit out of alignment with the weight of the game. It looks like it's a lighter game. It looks like it's a lighter experience, but it's very much a thinky experience where you're going to be trying to come up with the perfect moves in the game. And there also is a tiny amount of luck in the game. Not that in a way that bothers me, but you will have times where you flip over the after lunch card, and then depending on the positioning of the board, you may find yourself getting 2 of your people stomped on just because of the nature of what card came out and how that plays in. The generation of the tomes or all of that can have a small degree of luck on what is otherwise a perfect information abstract game. Overall, Mythic Mischief is absolutely delightful. As far as final thoughts, all of that, Mythic Mischief is delightful. It has powers and abilities. It has asymmetric powers and abilities. It has an abstract, thinky game that is meaty in a way that is so rewarding. This is a game that when you lose, you feel like it's your fault, and when you win, you feel like you played well. I enjoy the experience of this game. I enjoy it almost feels like, if you ever played way back in the day, I played a game called Quoridor. One of the Gigamic series of games. Or is it Gigamic? I never really know. But one of those, those wood series of games. You have Quarto, you have Quoridor, you have a whole bunch of other games. I don't remember them all, but Quoridor was a game that I really enjoyed, about building walls and trying to figure out the way to block your opponent from a pathway. And this feels like they took that game and put it on steroids with asymmetric powers and abilities in a way that is intensely rewarding, and for myself, hits all the right buttons. This is a game that I'm looking at when I think of, again, Santorini and Tak are my go-to abstracts, and this feels almost like a hybrid of the two. It feels like it has the powers and abilities of Santorini, and yet the elegance and tactical strategy and depth that Tak brings to the table. The main caveats are going to be that AP and that analysis process and the slightly longer runtime than I'm otherwise looking for. As far as rating, this one's a 5 out of 5 for me. I've really been enjoying my time with Mythic Mischief, and this is a game that I have been continuously knocking out play after play after play, well after I felt I was ready to do a review of it, just because I kind of want to play this one. I believe there's a quote, a testimonial on the GameFound page of Quacklope saying, they wanted the prototype back, I said they can't have it, and I get that, because I feel the same way about this game. And anyway, in any case, until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you have a good one, and make sure to check this one out on GameFound. It is, if you like abstracts, this is absolutely worth paying attention to. And if you don't like abstracts, it's probably still worth taking a look at. Until next time, have a good one.